2014 is winding down, and Americans across the country are taking stock of this year's biggest moments. And as President Obama's Chief of Staff, I've had the incredible privilege of watching some of these moments up close. Together, they show that despite what you may have heard, the President got a lot of important business done.
Well, that is a White House-produced video with huge Republican victories, though, in November. American voters, in essence, handed the president a defeat. But the White House says 2014 was a great year. In fact, the president has given himself an A+ for the year. Joining us now in Midpoint from D.C. International Advisory and a former senior advisor to the U.S. State Department, Christian Whiton. Hi, Christian. You know, some may say the president a little liberal when it comes to his report card. Play professor. What does he get on his second term midterm?
Well, I hate to go to the far end of the scale, but I'd have to give it a D or an F. You know, if you look through, it's actually worth going to the White House website and looking through what they list as accomplishments. According to them, we had a marvelous year in foreign affairs. I mean, forget about Russia, forget about a war against ISIS that seems to be going nowhere, forget about the collapse of Iraq, forget about any number of crises around the world. Also, marvelous progress on the economy, despite the fact that employment, if you look at total employment, is still kind of lousy, and the economy is doing better. But 5-6 years after a crisis, you would have expected to have done better a long time ago. And then last but not least, supposedly a wonderful year for Obamacare. But I mean, look at reality. We had the Jonathan Gruber revelations, this elitism that's coming from the White House, coming from progressives. And you had even Chuck Schumer, not a Republican, but a very senior Democrat, saying Obamacare was effectively a mistake for Democrats to pursue. So it just doesn't meet the White House billing.
Well, in the State of the Union address, the president vowed 2014 would be a year of action. What do you think? Has he delivered on his promise? Has there been action from the White House?
Not a lot. There have been some very high-profile things. The biggest is executive action, including on immigration and illegal aliens in the United States, and that will have an effect, of course. You know, refusing to enforce the law, even to a greater degree than presidents have in the past, will have an effect on our communities. Most of his other regulations, though, some have had an effect. They haven't done a lot of good. You've had stricter and stricter controls on coal emissions, for example. This White House believes that carbon is a pollutant. This White House believes that climate change is caused by man, that 4% of the carbon cycle that's caused by man is somehow changing the climate. And so you'll see energy prices going up at the time where, frankly, they should be going down with the energy glut in America. So a lot of executive action. Some is consequential and will harm America. Others can, frankly, be just wiped away with the stroke of a pen on January 20th, 2017 by the new president.
Well, you talk about executive actions, minimum wage, also part of that, federal workers on federal contracts to get $10.10. Talk about that. Has enough action been done possibly to ease this income inequality that we have in the United States?
No, it hasn't. But the minimum wage, I would argue, is not the solution. It's funny. The minimum wage enjoys broad political support, but one of the most settled issues in economics is that price controls cause shortages. And by creating a wage that's artificially high, you create a surplus of demand for jobs and a shortage of supplies, unemployment. And if you look in particular at youth unemployment and minority unemployment in cities, it's scandalously high, in the 20s and 30%. I mean, when was the last time you saw a kid pumping gas or pushing a mop around a grocery store? This is a consequence of a high minimum wage. It just does away with entry-level jobs. The minimum wage was never, ever supposed to support, be high enough for people to support a living. It's supposed to be for entry-level jobs. I think it's a scandal, really. You see the economy, the economic recovery, what progressives, what liberals accuse the 1980s recovery of being, that's actually happening now. The rich are getting richer and the middle class aren't benefiting. So if you're Goldman Sachs, if you're Citibank, if you can get access to free capital from the Federal Reserve, you're doing well. Your stock price is up. But for the rest of us, we've gotten a little break on gas prices lately. But go to the supermarket, try to go on vacation, try to send a kid to school. We're facing higher prices and stagnating incomes.
Well, the president's being criticized from the left by Bernie Sanders, from the right from people like Paul Ryan. What is the right suggesting to try to solve this problem of income inequality in our country?
Very little, which I think is unfortunate. I mean, there are some voices in the wilderness who have good plans. I'm afraid the Republicans are going to do what will be the least politically useful, which is to focus first on the corporate tax. Corporate tax is too high. It's the highest, either it was second to Japan or soon to be the highest in the world, because even Japan is cutting its rate. But the effective rate, what companies pay are much lower. Famously, General Electric pays nothing in corporate income taxes because of all the loopholes and deductions and exemptions.
Christian, thank you very much for laying it out for us, income equality in the United States. When we return, if you thought we missed any of the major stories, you're going to want to stick around. From Ferguson to bring back our girls, Ed Dean is joining us straight ahead on this Wednesday edition of Midpoint.